Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. I was in the garage holding a broken blender. Not fixing it. Just holding it. I had unplugged it 3 days ago after it started sparking when I made protein shakes, and somehow I never made it to the trash. It felt stupid in my hands. Heavy, pointless, noisy even when off. Like me. The call came in at 7:04 p.m. Unknown number. I answered because I'm the kind of guy who always answers. Even spam calls. I hate not knowing things. But it wasn't spam. It was her. "Hey," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the first word, like it hadn't been used in hours. Then silence. 10 seconds. 20. "I'll be late," she said finally. "Don't worry." She didn't say my name. She didn't say why. And then, I swear this part played in slow motion, I heard it. A man's voice. Laughing. Just one burst. Confident. Unapologetic. That was all. My hand gripped the dead blender tighter. And in a voice that surprised even me, I replied, "Take your time. I'll need some to pack your things." Click. I ended the call and placed the phone face down on the workbench like it had become radioactive. I didn't go inside right away. I didn't even breathe right. I just stood there, blinking at the wall, while the silence crept in like fog. And in that silence, I remembered everything I'd ignored. The 3-week work trip. The new password on her laptop. The perfume that wasn't hers. The excuse that didn't even try to be good last Thursday. 7 minutes passed before I moved. 28 before the door opened again. And what stepped in wasn't the woman I married. The door didn't slam. Clicked. That soft, deliberate kind of sound that doesn't match the chaos it brings. She stepped inside like she was walking into a hotel lobby. Calm. Dry. Coat perfectly draped over her left arm. Phone still in her hand. Lips pressed together like they were holding back either a sob or a lie. Behind her was a man. No hello. No handshake. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. He looked straight at me and gave a half smile. Not smug. Not friendly. Just aware. Like he already knew where this was going and didn't mind the mess. His hair was wet from the rain, and he smelled like too much cologne. The same one I found in her car 2 weeks ago. I didn't say anything at first. Just watched her. She couldn't meet my eyes. Not fully. She scanned the room, then looked down at the duffel bag I'd left by the stairs. Her eyes flicked to it like it was a bomb. "I didn't plan this," she said. Her voice was hoarse, not from crying, but from rehearsing this moment in her head too many times. "You planned it well enough to bring him," I said, nodding toward her guest. Still holding the blender in my hand. Like an idiot. My whole life in one broken appliance. Sparks, weight, uselessness. The man stepped forward just a little, not threatening, but bold. "Look, man. I don't want any trouble." I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because it was the first sound I could make that wasn't a scream. "Then you really shouldn't have followed her in here." She finally looked up, and for the first time, I saw something real on her face. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. She thought I'd lose it. She thought I'd shout or cry or fall to the floor and beg. But I didn't. I just placed the blender on the counter like I was clocking out from a long shift and said, "I know. I've known. I just didn't want it to be real." The rain outside started to fall harder. No thunder, just a constant curtain of sound that filled the spaces between our silence. He put a hand on her shoulder. She flinched. I noticed. "Interesting. I just came to grab some things," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I'll be out of your way in 10 minutes. "That's funny," I said, "because you're already in the way of everything." She took a step back, like I'd struck her. I hadn't moved. And that's when I realized something was off. Not just with her. With him. His shoes were dry. The rain had been coming down hard for at least 15 minutes. He hadn't been outside. He'd been somewhere else nearby. I scanned his coat. No water droplets. No smell of the storm. Not even wind-blown hair. This wasn't just some late-night pickup. He'd been in my house before. I looked her dead in the eye. "How long has he had a key?" The silence after I asked the question didn't last long. But it felt eternal. "How long has he had a key?" She blinked. "Once." Twice. Then her lips parted like she was about to lie again but realized, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't playing along anymore. Her eyes darted toward him like he'd have an answer, or maybe a better one than hers. He raised both hands slightly like I was a cop and he was being polite. I never had a key. His voice cracked on never. Just a little. That was enough. She stepped in quickly like she could somehow fix what had already shattered. He didn't mean that. I gave him mine once. Just once. When I locked myself out and you were at your mom's. I nodded slowly, the way you do when someone tells you the forecast for yesterday. Right? The weekend you said your phone died. When I drove 3 hours home and you weren't here. But your phone magically turned back on 5 minutes after I left again. Her shoulders tensed. That told me everything. I stepped past them. Not because I couldn't stand there anymore, but because I didn't trust myself to stay still. I walked into the kitchen. I opened the drawer where we kept the spare keys. The one that was supposed to hold the backup for her car, our mailbox, and yes, our front door. It was empty. I turned around. You replaced it, didn't you? I asked, voice calm, almost amused. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He looked at her now with confusion. That kind of confusion men get when they realize they weren't the only one being lied to. You told me he knew, he said, voice colder now. You told me you were separated. There it was. A half-truth born into the world like a dead thing. I walked past them again down the hall to the coat closet. I pushed past our winter jackets and boxes of holiday lights until I found the shoebox on the top shelf. She called out, "Don't." I opened it. Inside were 3 things. My missing wristwatch. The one she said she couldn't find after her friend's bachelorette party. A hotel keycard. And a printed photo. Of them. At my favorite hiking trail. She was wearing my flannel. I didn't say anything. I just walked back into the living room and handed her the photo. Here, I said. This one's yours. Her face flushed red. Not with shame. With panic. Because she didn't know that I knew about the photo. And now she didn't know what else I might have seen. The man, he was already backing away, toward the door. You lied to both of us, he muttered. But I didn't care about him. I looked at her one last time. Her hands were shaking now. Her mouth opened and closed like a drowning swimmer who realized no help was coming. You had a key, I said. But you still broke in. She didn't respond. Because there was nothing left to say. He stood near the doorway now, like he couldn't decide if he wanted to stay or run. Something in his posture shifted. His jaw clenched, eyes darting back and forth between me and her, like he was doing math in real time and hating the answer. That's when I realized he wasn't just embarrassed. He felt played. Tell him, he said suddenly, pointing at her. His voice was sharp now, like he'd snapped out of a spell. Tell him when it started. Tell him how many times. She opened her mouth but didn't get a word out before he cut her off. Tell him about Austin. Tell him you said you were flying solo for that conference. Remember that lie? She froze. That word, Austin, hit me like a gut punch. Because I had already suspected something during that trip. She'd come back from Texas distant, disinterested, almost resentful. When I tried to hold her hand in the car, she flinched like I was a stranger. At the time, I thought it was stress. Or maybe something I did. Now, I knew it had nothing to do with me. Or rather, everything, just not in the way I thought. The man, whatever his name was, kept going, like the dam had finally burst. You told me I was the only one. You said you were stuck in some dead marriage with a guy who didn't listen. That he didn't ask questions. That he was too scared to leave you. I said nothing. Not because he was wrong, but because he was so right it physically hurt. Her face turned cold. Not apologetic, defensive. She wasn't ashamed anymore. She was exposed. That's when her voice changed. Flat. Mechanical. The version of her I hadn't met until now. You weren't supposed to meet each other, she said, almost under her breath. None of this was supposed to happen like this. He scoffed. So it was a game to you? No, she snapped. It was damage control. You think you were the plan? You were a mistake I tried to manage. And now you're both here and now it's ruined. I stepped forward. Ruined? No. What's ruined is the illusion that you were someone worth trusting. Someone decent. She locked eyes with me, finally. You weren't supposed to find out like this. I nodded. And yet you walked him through the front door. There was a pause, thick and nauseating. Then something inside the other guy cracked. Not loudly, quietly, like a man waking up from a long, stupid dream. I'm done, he muttered and walked past her. No goodbye, no last glance. Just the click of the door behind him, and then we were alone. She looked at me. What do you want from me? And I swear, I didn't plan this response. It just came out like muscle memory. I want you gone. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, like she still had the right to move through the house that way. I followed at a distance, and what I saw when I turned the corner into the bedroom wasn't just her packing. It was her pulling something out from under the bed. A folder. And for some reason, she panicked when she saw me watching. I didn't move right away. I just stood there in the doorway, watching her with her back half-turned toward me. Her hands frozen around the black folder she'd pulled out from under the bed. She looked like a kid caught stealing from their parents' drawer. Not guilty, just startled to be seen. What's in that? I asked, even though I already knew the answer I'd get. She didn't turn around. It's nothing. That's not what your face says. Her grip on the folder tightened. It's old stuff, from before us. Then why is it under the bed? I walked forward slowly, deliberately, not threatening, just making it clear I wasn't leaving this room without it. Why not in the closet? Why not in the garage with the rest of the memories you outgrew? She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. She looked so tired. It almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. I reached for the folder. She didn't stop me. It wasn't locked. No zipper. No seal. Just a simple clasp. I opened it, and the first thing I saw was my handwriting. Receipts. Letters. Sketches I had made when we were dating. Notes I'd tucked into her lunches when I worked late shifts and she was finishing nursing school. Pictures from our first road trip. A movie ticket from the night I proposed. A note she had written on the back of a grocery list. When you smile in your sleep, it makes my day better. I was confused. This looks like... I paused, flipping through the stack. Why did you hide this? Then I found something else. Slipped behind a photograph of us in the rain. Something that didn't belong. A letter. Handwritten. Not by me. The date in the corner was 4 months ago. It was from him. But it wasn't a love letter. It was a confession. I don't know what this is, it began. You told me this was temporary. You said he was cruel to you. You said he'd cheated first. I believed you, but now I'm starting to wonder if I'm the one being used. I kept reading. It got worse. The guy, whoever he really was, had clearly been unraveling. He was realizing too late that she wasn't who she pretended to be. He mentioned another man. The third one. Someone before him. A name I didn't recognize. He even wrote that he found a burner phone in her car. That she kept telling him she was cleaning up loose ends. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just been unfaithful. She was rotating people in and out of her life like furniture. Each one believing he was the exception. Each one catching on too late. And now, with the folder wide open on my lap, she finally spoke. I didn't throw it away because it was the only thing that reminded me I wasn't always like this. I looked up at her. Like what? She took a long breath. Detached. Reckless. Selfish. I stared at her for a moment. Then at the folder. It wasn't just memories in there. It was evidence. A trail of deception, layered, strategic, and horrifyingly organized. I stood up and stepped back. You weren't collecting memories, I said. You were collecting alibis. Her face changed. Not angry, not hurt, but defeated. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just left the folder on the bed and walked out of the room. Because the truth wasn't a knife. It was a mirror. And I had just seen what she looked like when she thought no one would ever look back. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't. Because I didn't want to. I sat in the living room with the lights off, listening to the soft creaks of the house as she moved around upstairs. Closet doors opening, drawers being emptied, suitcases being zipped. The occasional clink of a hanger. The occasional muffled sniffle. None of it moved me. I kept thinking about that letter. About the man who wrote it. About the other man he mentioned. And about how this whole time I thought the story was simple, just me, her, and the guy who walked in with her. But it wasn't. This was layered. Deliberate. Orchestrated. Around 2 a.m. I heard her come down the stairs. She didn't speak. She just walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stood there with the door open far too long. I watched her silhouette from the hallway. She grabbed a bottle of water, closed the door, and finally noticed me. We didn't say anything for a while. Then, quietly, she asked, "Do you hate me yet?" I didn't answer. She walked a little closer but stayed by the dining table, arms folded. "You can." I took a breath. "I think I hate that I was still willing to believe you had a reason." She looked down. "I did," she whispered. It stopped being about you. I waited." She continued. "It started because I wanted someone to listen to me. Then I wanted someone to distract me. Then I wanted someone to protect me from the second guy. And then," she trailed off. I leaned forward. "The second guy?" Her eyes snapped back to mine, wide, startled, like she realized what she just said. "That wasn't in the letter." I stood up. "Who's the second guy?" I asked again. She hesitated. Then finally, she whispered a name. And I froze, because I knew it. Not as a stranger. Not as some fling from a work conference. I knew it as someone I'd spoken to, trusted, let into my home. She bit her lip, tears now fully forming. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to stop it. I swear I tried." I stepped back. My heart was pounding now. "You didn't just lie to me," I said. "You brought it inside this house. You made me shake hands with someone who was laughing behind my back." She said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Only one thing was clear now. This wasn't just betrayal. It was invasion. And it was far from over. I couldn't stay still after that. I walked into the hallway like the walls themselves were watching me. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It had moved past panic into something colder, something clinical. Survival mode. His name. She'd said his name. And the moment she did, my brain started lining up all the photos in my memory like they were pieces in a puzzle I never meant to solve. There he was, at our 4th of July barbecue last year, holding a beer, wearing my hoodie because he'd forgotten his. There he was again, helping me fix the broken fence in October, laughing at my jokes, asking how things were going with her. And now I knew. He wasn't asking because he cared. He was asking because he was measuring his window. I opened the hallway cabinet. The one where we kept our memory boxes. Those dumb labeled bins filled with old phones, birthday cards, receipts, and photos. I hadn't touched them in months, maybe years. I tore through the first one, then the second, and there it was. A framed photo from my last birthday, taken at the local pub. Me, her, and a small group of our closest friends. And him, standing behind her, not next to her, behind her, hand on her shoulder. My shoulder blocked his wrist in the shot, but I could see just enough. That hand didn't look casual. It looked claimed. I stared at the photo for a full minute, not blinking. Then I flipped it over, and that's when my hands started to shake. There was writing on the back. Not in my handwriting. Just 3 words. Finally got in. That wasn't meant for me. That was a message between them. Like a trophy tag. Like a prize had been won. I stormed back to the living room. She was still sitting at the table, her hands pressed over her face. "You let him into our lives," I said. "You made him my friend." She didn't respond. "You gave him a role to play. He didn't even have to earn it." Still nothing. I dropped the frame in front of her. She looked at it, then away, then said something so quiet, I almost missed it. "You liked him." I blinked. "What?" "You liked him," she repeated. "That's why I thought I could get away with it." There was no anger in her voice, just fact. She knew me well enough to know who I would trust. She used that. She planned that. This wasn't just betrayal. It was architecture. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with a blanket draped over me. I didn't put it there. She must have. A silent apology, maybe, or just one last attempt at comfort. Either way, it didn't matter. She was already gone. The suitcase was gone from the hall. Her shoes from the rack. Even her toothbrush from the bathroom. No note. No text. Just a folded envelope on the kitchen counter with my name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside were a few receipts, a check for half the rent, and a business card. It wasn't hers. It was his. The second man. The one she'd said was done with her. But apparently not done with me. He'd written a note on the back of the card. I didn't know the truth. You deserve better than both of us. I've cut ties. I hope you find peace. And weirdly, I believed him. Because I could see it now. How she'd spun us both into her web and played us against each other without ever letting us realize it. We weren't enemies. We were just pawns. But the game was over. Later that day, I packed a box of her old things, taped it shut, and dropped it off at her sister's house. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I just left it on the porch like a package with no return label. And that night, I made soup again. Same as before. Tomato bisque from a can, a little garlic, but this time, no shaking hands, no burning, no phone call halfway through, just me, my quiet little kitchen, and the sound of my own breath. And I smiled, because for the first time in months, maybe years, I was alone but not abandoned. I wasn't broken. I was just free. I took out my old sketch pad, the one I hadn't touched since the lies started piling up. I drew the blender from the garage, the dumb thing that had sparked this entire spiral. And you know what? It looked kind of beautiful. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. Have you ever found something? An object? A message? Or even just a moment that told you everything you needed to know? Something that changed your whole perspective? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.